The Zalani rescue shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Keth 7 3 days after the wolf attack. Commander Vexatar had made the difficult decision to reveal themselves rather than wait for human reinforcements to arrive. His scientific curiosity had overcome his caution, and he needed to understand these strange creatures before they disappeared forever. From their hidden observation post, Vextar and his team had watched the humans care for their wounds and continue tending to Rex with the same devotion they had shown from the beginning. The Kethatar's condition had actually improved despite the recent battle, thanks to the constant attention he received from his human companions. Jake Morrison sat beside Rex in the morning sunlight, carefully cleaning the predator's wounds while talking to him in soothing tones. The massive creature lay still and patient, occasionally making soft rumbling sounds that seemed to indicate contentment. Lisa Park worked nearby, mixing what remained of their medical supplies into treatments for both human and Kethtar injuries. Unknown. "Vessel approaching from the south," Captain Ben Hayes called out, his hand shading his eyes as he looked up at the sky. "Looks like someone received our distress signal." The Zalani shuttle touched down at the edge of the clearing with a soft hiss of atmospheric processors. Its sleek gray hull and advanced design made the human wreckage look primitive by comparison. A hatch opened with mechanical precision, and Commander Vextar emerged, followed by his science team. The human's reaction was not what he had expected. Instead of relief at being rescued, they immediately moved into protective positions around Rex. Jake placed himself between the Kethtar and the newcomers, while Lisa kept one hand on her improvised medical kit and the other on Rex's massive head. Vextar approached slowly, his forearms spread wide in what he hoped was a non-threatening gesture. His translator device activated as he spoke, converting his words into the human's language. "Greetings. I am Commander Vextar of the Zalani Expedition Ship Observation Prime. We received your distress signal and have come to offer assistance." "Assistance is appreciated," Ben replied carefully. "But we have some special circumstances here that need to be considered." The Zalani commander studied the scene before him with his large black eyes. Rex was even more impressive in person than he had appeared. Through their probe's cameras, the Kethtar was massive and clearly deadly despite his injuries. Yet the humans showed no fear of him whatsoever. Jake actually had his hand resting casually on the creature's snout, as if touching a gentle pet. "We are prepared to transport you to safety," Vextar continued. "Our ship has medical facilities that can treat your injuries and provide proper nutrition during your recovery." "That's very kind," Jake said. "But Rex comes with us. He's part of our group and we won't leave without him." Dr. Zelmoth stepped forward, his scientific instruments scanning the wounded predator. "I must advise against such action. Kethtars are extremely dangerous creatures. This specimen could kill all of you without warning." Lisa laughed, a sound that seemed strange given their dire circumstances. "Rex isn't going to hurt anyone. He's been protecting us, not threatening us." "Impossible," Kilana interjected. "Predators do not form protective bonds with prey species. Your behavior toward this creature is irrational and suicidal." Jake stood, up slowly, his wounds from the recent battle still visible through his torn clothing. "You don't understand. Rex isn't just some animal we found. He's family now." The word hit the Zalani team like a physical blow. Family bonds were sacred among their species, representing the strongest possible connection between individuals. To claim such a relationship with an alien predator was either madness or something far beyond their understanding. Commander Vextar activated his scanner and directed it toward Rex, hoping to detect signs of mind control technology or chemical manipulation. Are you using some form of pheromone control or neural conditioning on this creature? We're not using anything except kindness and respect, Ben answered firmly. Rex chose to stay with us and we chose to care for him. It's that simple. But it was not simple for the Zalani observers. In their extensive database of sentient behavior, no species had ever formed genuine emotional bonds with natural predators. Such relationships violated every known principle of evolution and survival instinct. Rex himself seemed to sense the tension in the air. He lifted his massive head and studied the Zalani visitors with intelligent eyes, his body language becoming more alert and protective. When Dr. Zelmoth moved closer with his scanning equipment, Rex rose to his feet despite his healing injuries and positioned himself between the alien scientist and Jake. "Fascinating," Zelmoth murmured. "The creature shows clear protective behavior toward the humans. This suggests genuine emotional attachment rather than simple conditioning." Vextar tried a different approach. "Perhaps you do not understand the danger you are in. This creature's species is responsible for hundreds of documented attacks on space travelers. They are incapable of forming emotional bonds with other species." "Then you haven't been watching Rex very carefully," Amy said from her position near their shelter. "He's been taking care of us just as much as we've been taking care of him." To demonstrate her point, Amy deliberately stumbled as if her injured leg was giving out. Rex immediately moved to support her, his massive bulk providing a stable platform for her to lean against. His movement was gentle and controlled, showing no sign of aggression despite his obvious physical power. The Zalani team exchanged confused glances. This level of care and attention from a wild predator was unprecedented in their records. Rex was not just tolerating the humans' presence. He was actively participating in their welfare and protection. "We cannot allow you to bring a dangerous predator aboard our ship," Vextar stated firmly. "Our safety protocols strictly forbid such action." Jake's response was immediate and non-negotiable. "Then we don't go. We'll wait here for human rescue. Ships if necessary." "That could take weeks," Kilana protested. "Your supplies are nearly exhausted and this moon is extremely hostile to your species." "We've survived this long," Lisa said calmly. "We can survive longer if we have to, but we're not abandoning Rex." The confrontation reached its peak when Dr. Zelmoth produced a sedation device designed for large predators. "Perhaps we can sedate the creature for safe transport. Once we reach our ship, we can study its behavior patterns and determine how you achieved this unusual relationship." Rex's reaction to the threat was immediate and alarming. He rose to his full height and stepped protectively in front of all. 4 humans, his acidic saliva beginning to drip more heavily as his stress levels increased. But his aggression was not directed at the humans he was protecting. It was focused entirely on the Zalani, who represented a threat to his adopted family. Jake quickly moved to calm his companion, placing both hands on Rex's massive flank and speaking in soothing tones. "Easy, boy. Nobody's going to hurt you. We won't let them." The sight of a human calming an agitated apex predator through simple touch and voice was something that challenged every assumption the Zalani held about interspecies relationships. Rex responded immediately to Jake's presence, his stress levels dropping and his protective posture relaxing slightly. "You see," Jake explained to the stunned aliens, "Rex isn't just protecting us because we fed him or because we fixed his leg. He's protecting us because he cares about us, and we care about him the same way." Dr. Zelmoth lowered his sedation device, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was witnessing. This level of emotional bonding should not be possible between species with such different evolutionary backgrounds. Maybe not for your species, Ben said quietly, but humans have always had a gift for making friends with other creatures. We've been doing it for thousands of years on our own planet. Lisa stepped forward and began explaining their history with animal companionship. She told the Zilani about dogs and cats, about horses and dolphins, about the countless species that humans had befriended throughout their evolution. She described how they had turned wolves into loyal companions, how they had formed working relationships with creatures as dangerous as sharks and bears. For humans, she concluded, the ability to form emotional bonds with other species isn't unusual. It's one of our greatest strengths. Commander Vextar felt a chill run through his body as he began to understand the implications of what he was hearing. If humans could routinely form family bonds with apex predators, if they could turn natural enemies into devoted allies through simple compassion, then they represented something unprecedented in galactic civilization. Rex sealed the demonstration by approaching Vextar directly, moving with careful deliberation to show he was not attacking. The massive Keth Tar sat down in front of the Zilani commander and simply waited, his intelligent eyes making direct contact in what could only be interpreted as a formal introduction. "He wants to meet you properly," Jake explained with a smile. "Rex knows you're here to help us, so he's trying to be friendly." Vextar stared into the Predator's eyes and saw something he had never expected to find: intelligence, curiosity, and unmistakable affection for the humans he protected. This was not a mindless beast or a conditioned. Commander Vextar stared at the readings on his screen and felt his 4 hearts skip a beat. The signals were clear and unmistakable. An unknown vessel had crashed on the jungle moon of Keth 7 3 days ago. His ship Observation Prime had been traveling through this sector when they picked up the distress beacon. Now they hung in orbit above the green and brown world, watching and waiting. The commander was tall even for a Zilani, standing nearly 8 feet with gray skin that shimmered in the ship's artificial light. His large black eyes moved quickly across the data streams, while his communications officer Kil-Ana worked at her station nearby. Behind them, the ship's xenobiologist, Dr. Zelmoth, studied atmospheric readings and surface scans. The crashed vessel appears to be from an unknown species, Dr. Zelmoth reported in his calm voice. The design is primitive but functional. Metal construction with chemical propulsion systems. Very basic compared to our technology. Vextar nodded slowly. In his 40 years of space exploration, he had cataloged 847 different sentient species across 12 galaxies. Each one followed predictable patterns when stranded or in survival situations. Resource hoarding came first, followed by territorial disputes as supplies ran low. If rescue did not arrive quickly, cannibalism usually followed within 2 weeks. It was a universal constant among all known life forms. "How many survivors?" he asked. "Thermal scans show 4 life forms still moving around the crash site," Kil-Ana answered. "They appear to be bipedal, roughly 6 feet in height, carbon-based from what we can tell." "Prepare a reconnaissance probe," Vextar ordered. "I want continuous observation of their behavior. This will be an excellent opportunity to study a new species under survival stress." The probe launched silently from their ship and descended through the thick atmosphere of Keth 7. The jungle moon was known for its dangerous wildlife and hostile environment. Massive predators roamed the surface while poisonous plants and extreme weather made survival nearly impossible for most species. It was the perfect natural laboratory for studying how intelligent beings responded to mortal danger. The probe's cameras activated as it settled into a hidden position among the thick trees near the crash site. Vextar and his team gathered around the main viewing screen as images began streaming back to their ship. What they saw made them pause in confusion. The crashed vessel sat in a small clearing where it had torn through the jungle canopy. Smoke still rose from its damaged engines, and metal debris scattered across the ground showed the violence of the impact. But it was not the wreckage that caught their attention. It was what the survivors were doing. One of the creatures knelt beside something large and dark near the edge of the clearing. As the probe's cameras focused and adjusted, the Zalani crew gasped in shock. The survivor was tending to a wounded Kethtar, one of the moon's most deadly apex predators. The Kethtar was massive, easily 12 feet long with 6 powerful legs ending in razor-sharp claws. Its elongated head housed rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh, and acidic saliva dripped constantly from its jaws. Even wounded and lying on its side, the creature looked terrifying. Its left rear leg was clearly broken, bent at an unnatural angle. The human survivor appeared completely unafraid. He had removed his outer clothing and torn it into strips, which he was using to fashion some kind of splint for the creature's broken leg. His movements were gentle and careful, as if he were handling a beloved pet rather than a monster that could kill him with a single swipe of its claws. "This makes no sense," Dr. Zelmoth whispered. "That creature should have eaten him by now." Vextar studied the scene with growing confusion. The human was male, with brown hair and pale skin marked by various scratches and bruises from the crash. His clothing was torn and dirty, but he showed no signs of the panic or aggression that normally accompanied survival situations. Instead, he worked with calm focus to help the predator. "Perhaps this is some form of ritual preparation," Kilana suggested. "Many species perform ceremonies before consuming their prey." But as they continued watching, the human's behavior became even more puzzling. He reached into a small pack beside him and pulled out what appeared to be food rations. Instead of eating them himself, he began hand-feeding small pieces to the wounded Kethtar. The massive predator accepted the offerings with surprising gentleness, never showing its teeth or making threatening sounds. "Impossible," Vextar muttered. "No sentient species voluntarily feeds a natural predator. It goes against every survival instinct." The other 3 survivors appeared at the edge of the clearing. 2 females and another male, all showing signs of injury but moving under their own power. Vexitar expected them to stop their companions. Dangerous behavior, but instead they simply approached and began helping. One of the females knelt beside the first human and examined the Kethtar's wounds with obvious expertise. She appeared to be some kind of medical professional, checking the creature's pulse and looking into its eyes with a small light. The other survivors gathered materials from the crash site, bringing metal plates and fabric that could be used to create better shelter and medical supplies. "They are all participating in this madness," Dr. Zelmoth observed. "This cannot be ritual behavior. They are genuinely trying to save that creature's life." Hours passed as the Zalani team watched in fascination and growing alarm. The humans worked together to construct a lean-to shelter over the wounded Kethtar, protecting it from the harsh afternoon sun. They brought it water in improvised containers and continued feeding it from their limited supplies. Most disturbing of all, they showed no fear when the massive predator moved or made sounds. As evening approached, the jungle around the crash site came alive with the calls of nocturnal hunters. Other predators could be sensed moving through. The darkness beyond the clearing. Any rational species would have built defenses, created weapons, or at least moved to high ground. Instead, the humans simply made a small fire and settled down to rest near their wounded companion. The male who had first been tending the creature actually lay down within arm's reach of its massive head. He used his pack as a pillow and closed, his eyes as if preparing to sleep. The female with medical knowledge sat nearby, keeping watch but showing no concern about the deadly beast so close to her unconscious friend. "This is unprecedented," Vextar said quietly. "In all our records, no species has ever shown this kind of behavior toward a natural predator. They are either completely insane or operating under principles we do not understand." "Should we intervene?" Kilana asked. "They will certainly be killed if they continue this foolishness." Vextar considered the question carefully. His standing. Orders were to observe and document, not to interfere with natural processes. But something about this situation felt different. These creatures were not following any known behavioral patterns. Their actions suggested either advanced intelligence or complete madness, and he needed to determine which. "Continue observation," he decided. "Double the watch schedule. I want every moment recorded and analyzed. If these creatures survive the night, we may be witnessing something completely new in the galaxy." As the hours passed and the jungle grew quiet, the Zalani watched in amazement as the wounded Keth Tar seemed to take on a protective posture around the sleeping humans. When other predators approached the clearing, the massive creature would lift its head and emit low warning growls that sent the intruders fleeing back into the darkness. By morning, all 4 humans were still alive, and the Kethtar appeared, to be recovering under their care. Vextar knew he was witnessing something that would challenge everything his people believed about survival, intelligence, and the nature of predator-prey relationships. These humans were rewriting the rules of the galaxy, and he was not sure if that should terrify him or fill him with wonder. The attack came without warning in the darkest hour before dawn. Jake Morrison jolted awake to the sound of Rex's urgent growling, a deep rumble that seemed to shake the ground beneath their makeshift shelter. Through the dying embers of their fire, he could see pairs of glowing eyes moving in the darkness beyond the clearing. "Everyone up?" he called quietly, reaching for the metal rod he had salvaged from their ship's wreckage. "We've got company." Lisa Park was already moving, her medical training making her quick to respond to emergencies. She grabbed the spear she had crafted from a broken antenna and positioned herself near their supply cache. Captain Ben Hayes and Engineer Amy Collins emerged from their shelter, both armed with improvised weapons and looking grim. Rex struggled to stand despite his healing leg, his massive form blocking the path between the humans and the approaching threat. His acidic saliva dripped more heavily as he bared his formidable teeth, and his claws extended fully for the first time since the humans had begun caring for him. From the jungle came the hunting calls of saber wolves, the moon's most aggressive pack predators. They were smaller than Rex, but faster and more numerous, with elongated fangs designed for piercing armor and razor-sharp claws that could tear through metal. A full pack could number 20 or more individuals, and they were known for their relentless hunting style. High above in the observation prime, Commander Vexitar leaned forward in his chair as the ship's sensors detected the approaching threat. 23 saber wolves converging on the human position, Dr. Zelmoth reported. "This will be the end of our observation period." "Finally, we will see normal behavior," Kilana added. "They will abandon the wounded Kethtar and attempt to save themselves." But as the first saber wolves emerged from the tree line, the humans' response defied all expectations. Instead of fleeing or leaving Rex behind, Jake stepped forward to stand beside the massive predator. His weapon was pathetically small compared to the claws and teeth arrayed against them. But his stance was protective and determined. "Stay close to Rex," he called to his teammates. "We fight together, or we don't fight at all." The first wolf lunged at Lisa, its fangs aimed at her throat. Rex intercepted it despite his injured leg, catching the attacker in his powerful jaws and shaking it violently before throwing it aside. But 3 more wolves immediately took its place, surrounding the group and looking for openings. Lisa ducked under a leaping wolf and drove her spear upward, catching it in the chest. The impact knocked her backward, but Jake was there instantly, his metal rod striking another attacker that had been moving to finish her off. Amy swung her improvised club with both hands, keeping 2 wolves at bay, while Ben used a piece of ship's hull as a shield to protect their flank. The battle quickly became a desperate melee with no clear lines. Wolves darted in and out of the firelight, their speed making them difficult targets, while their numbers threatened to overwhelm the small group. Rex fought with savage efficiency, his size and strength making him a formidable opponent, but his healing leg limited his mobility. What shocked the Zolani observers was not the violence of the combat, but the way the humans coordinated their defense around protecting Rex. When a wolf managed to slip past the Kethtar's guard and attack his injured side, Jake immediately abandoned his own safety to intercede. He threw himself between the wolf and Rex, taking deep claw marks across his back rather than let their companion be hurt. "Impossible," Vextar whispered. "He is sacrificing himself for a predator." Lisa proved equally willing to risk everything for Rex's safety. When 3 wolves coordinated an attack on the Kethtar's vulnerable rear leg, she charged directly into their midst with her spear. Her attack disrupted their coordination, but left her surrounded and badly outnumbered. Rex immediately turned to help her, abandoning his advantageous position to ensure she was not overwhelmed. The fighting continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Bodies of defeated wolves littered the clearing, but more kept emerging from the jungle. The humans were beginning to tire, their improvised weapons growing heavy in their hands. Rex was bleeding from several new wounds, and his breathing was becoming labored. Ben took a severe bite to his left arm when he used his own body to shield Amy from a coordinated attack. Amy herself was limping from claw marks on her leg, but she continued fighting with desperate determination. Lisa's spear had broken, leaving her with only a jagged fragment, but she positioned herself protectively over Jake when he stumbled from blood loss. The turning point came when the largest of the saber wolves, obviously the pack leader, decided to end the fight by targeting Rex directly. The alpha wolf was nearly as large as the Kethtar and clearly intended to establish dominance through single combat. It approached Rex with the confidence of a creature that had never lost such a battle. Rex rose to meet the challenge, but his injured leg gave way at the crucial moment. He stumbled and fell heavily to one side, leaving him vulnerable to the alpha's attack. The wolf leaped forward with its fangs extended, aiming for Rex's throat in what would have been a killing blow. "Jake," Morrison moved without thinking. He launched himself through the air, intercepting the alpha wolf in mid-leap and tackling it away from Rex. The impact drove both human and wolf to the ground in a tangle of limbs and claws. Jake's metal rod clattered away into the darkness, leaving him weaponless against a predator twice his size. The alpha wolf recovered first and pinned Jake beneath its weight, its fangs inches from his face. But before it could deliver the fatal bite, Rex was there. Despite his injuries and exhaustion, the massive Kethtar struck with devastating force, his powerful jaws clamping down on the Alpha's neck and ending the threat instantly. The death of their leader broke the remaining wolves' courage. They melted back into the jungle as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind only their fallen packmates and the lingering scent of violence. The clearing fell silent except for the heavy breathing of the survivors and the crackling of their rebuilt fire. Jake lay on his back, staring up at the stars, his body a map of cuts and bruises, but his spirit unbroken. Rex limped over and carefully lay down beside him, the massive predator's head resting gently on Jake's chest. Despite his own wounds, Rex began licking Jake's injuries with obvious concern. "Good boy," Jake whispered, his voice barely audible. "You saved us all." Lisa crawled over to check on both of them, her medical supplies already in hand despite her own injuries. She worked quickly to clean and bandage the worst wounds, moving between human and Kethtar with equal care and attention. Ben and Amy helped as much as their own injuries allowed, but their primary concern was clearly for both Jake and Rex. The human used his own body to protect the predator, Dr. Zelmoth reported in a stunned voice. And the predator returned. The favor. This level of mutual sacrifice is unprecedented in our records. Commander Vextar studied the aftermath of the battle with growing unease. By all known behavioral patterns, the humans should have abandoned Rex when the fighting started. Self-preservation was supposed to be the strongest instinct among all sentient species. Yet these humans had repeatedly risked their lives to protect a creature that was not even their own species. More disturbing still was Rex's response. The Kethtar had fought not just to defend himself, but to protect the humans who had shown him kindness. He had abandoned tactical advantages to ensure their safety, and had ultimately saved Jake's life at considerable risk to his own healing body. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the jungle canopy, the small group worked together to tend their wounds and strengthen their defenses. Jake insisted on checking Rex's injuries before allowing Lisa to treat his own, and Rex seemed equally concerned about Jake's well-being. The bond between them had been tested by violence and had emerged stronger than before. They truly care for each other, Kilana observed quietly. This is not strategy or survival instinct. This is genuine emotional attachment. Vextar nodded slowly, his mind struggling to process what he had witnessed. In 40 years of studying sentient behavior, he had never seen anything like this. These humans had formed a family bond with an apex predator through nothing more than compassion and mutual respect. They were willing to die for each other, and more importantly, they were willing to live for each other. Captain Ben Hayes made the decision that would change everything. Despite their injuries and dwindling supplies, he activated their emergency beacon to call for rescue. But his reason was not what the Zilani expected. "We need to get Rex proper medical treatment," Ben explained to his team. "Field medicine can only do so much, and he deserves the best care we can provide." The humans were calling for rescue, not to save themselves, but to save their companion. They were willing to reveal their location to unknown forces, risking capture, or worse, because they valued Rex's life as much as their own. For the Zilani observers, this final act of devotion confirmed what they had begun to suspect. They were dealing with a species unlike any other in the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Park knelt beside the massive creature and checked its pulse again. The Kethtar's heartbeat was strong and steady, much better than it had been 3 days ago when Jake first found it bleeding near their crash site. She ran her fingers along the improvised splint they had made for its broken leg, pleased to see that the swelling had gone down significantly. "How's our patient doing today?" Jake Morrison asked as he approached with a container of fresh water. His brown hair was messy from sleep, and his clothes were even more torn and dirty than before, but his smile was genuine as he looked down at their unlikely companion. "Much better," Lisa replied. "The infection in his leg wound is clearing up, and he's putting on weight from all the food you keep giving him." She scratched gently behind one of the creature's 6 ears, and it made a sound that could almost be called purring. Jake laughed and sat down cross-legged beside the Kethtar's massive head. "Well, Rex here has been a good patient. Haven't you, boy?" He reached out to stroke the creature's snout, completely unafraid of the rows of sharp teeth just inches from his fingers. High above in orbit, Commander Vextar watched this scene with growing confusion. It had been a week since the humans first began caring for the wounded predator, and their behavior had only become more puzzling. Instead of treating the creature as a temporary alliance of convenience, they seemed to have adopted it as a permanent member of their group. "They have given it a name," Dr. Zelmoth observed from his position at the monitoring station. "Rex appears to be some form of designation meaning king or leader in their language." "Even more disturbing," Kilana added, "they continue to use their own medical supplies and food rations on the creature. Their supplies are running dangerously low, yet they show no signs of changing this behavior." Vextar studied the readings from their probe. The humans had been on the surface for 9 days now, and their emergency supplies should have run out days ago. By all known patterns, they should be fighting among themselves for the remaining resources. Instead, they continued to share everything, equally with each other and with their massive companion. On the surface, Jake pulled out one of their last protein bars and broke it into small pieces. He fed half to Rex and ate the other half himself, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Lisa worked on improving the shelter they had built over the creature, using salvaged materials from their ship to make it more weatherproof. The other 2 survivors, Captain Ben Hayes and Engineer Amy Collins, returned from their daily exploration of the surrounding area. They had been searching for additional supplies and mapping the local terrain, but their main concern seemed to be finding better food sources for their wounded companion. "Found a stream about 2 miles north," Ben reported as he dropped his pack beside the fire. "Water's clean and there are some fruit trees nearby. Might be something Rex can eat." Amy nodded and pulled out several strange-looking fruits from her pack. "These are similar to something in our botanical database, non-toxic for carbon-based life forms. Thought we might try feeding them to him." Lisa examined the fruits carefully, before cutting one into small pieces. She offered a slice to Rex, who sniffed it cautiously before accepting the new food. His tail actually wagged slightly as he chewed, and the humans all smiled at this sign of pleasure. "Unbelievable," Vextar muttered. "They are actively trying to improve the creature's diet. This goes beyond simple medical care." The Zalani commander had seen many species form temporary alliances during survival situations, but those relationships were always based on mutual benefit and were abandoned as soon as the danger passed. What he was witnessing here seemed to be something else entirely. The humans appeared to genuinely care about the creature's well-being, not because it could help them survive, but simply because they wanted it to be happy and healthy. As afternoon turned to evening, the daily routine continued. Jake checked Rex's wounds and changed the bandages they had made from torn clothing. Lisa monitored his vital signs and administered improvised medications. Ben and Amy worked on strengthening their shelter and maintaining their fire. Throughout it all, they talked to Rex constantly, as if he were a fellow human who could understand every word. "You're looking much better today," Jake told the creature as he cleaned a cut on its front leg. "That leg should be healed enough for you to walk on in another few days. Then we can start taking you on longer trips to find better food." Rex seemed to understand the tone, if not the words. He nuzzled against Jake's shoulder and made soft rumbling sounds that the humans had learned meant contentment. The sight of a 12-foot apex predator acting like an affectionate pet was something that challenged every assumption the Zilani had about natural behavior. "They treat it like family," Kilana observed quietly. "Not as a tool or weapon, but as an equal member of their group." This observation proved even more accurate as the days continued. When Rex grew restless during his recovery, the humans took turns sitting with him and providing comfort. When he seemed lonely, they would lie down beside him and simply keep him company. When he appeared to be in pain, they would find ways to distract and soothe him. Most remarkably, Rex began to reciprocate their care. When Jake developed a fever from an infected cut on his arm, the massive creature positioned itself beside him and used its body heat to keep him warm. When Lisa worked late into the night checking their supplies, Rex stayed awake to keep her company, his large eyes watching the darkness beyond their fire. The relationship deepened when nocturnal predators began testing the boundaries of their camp. Packs of smaller but still dangerous creatures would circle the clearing at night, drawn by the scent of the humans and their supplies. Rex, despite his injuries, would position himself between the humans and any potential threat. His low growls and impressive size were usually enough to send the intruders fleeing back into the jungle. "Fascinating," Dr. Zelmoth commented as they watched Rex chase away a pack of hunting creatures. "The Kethtar is actually protecting them. This level of loyalty typically takes generations of selective breeding to achieve. But the humans had not bred Rex or trained him in any conventional sense. They had simply shown him kindness and care when he was vulnerable, and he had responded with trust and affection. The bond between them seemed to grow stronger each day, based on nothing more than mutual respect and genuine emotional connection. Jake began teaching Rex simple commands, not through force or food rewards, but through patient repetition and positive reinforcement. The massive predator learned to respond to his name, to stay when asked, and even to bring specific objects when requested. His intelligence became obvious as he began anticipating the humans' needs, bringing them water when they were thirsty or alerting them to approaching dangers. "This is not possible according to our behavioral models," Vextar said, reviewing the accumulated data. "A wild predator cannot be domesticated through simple kindness. It requires generations of careful breeding and behavioral conditioning." Yet the evidence was undeniable. Rex had transformed from a wounded wild animal into what could only be described as a loyal companion. He responded to the humans' voices, showed obvious affection for each of them, and seemed to understand his role as both protected and protector within their small group. The most disturbing moment for the Zilani observers came when Jake fell, asleep during his watch duty, exhausted from days of caring for both Rex and his injured teammates. Any rational creature would have used this opportunity to escape or establish dominance. Instead, Rex carefully moved to take over the watch, positioning himself where he could see all approaches to their camp while keeping Jake safely behind him. Throughout the long night, the massive predator remained alert and protective, never once threatening the vulnerable humans who slept peacefully nearby. When morning came, and Jake awoke to find Rex standing guard over them all, the humans' first response was not fear or surprise, but gratitude and affection. "Thank you, boy," Jake said, scratching Rex behind the ears. "You're the best guard dog a guy could ask for." Vextar realized with growing unease that he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. These humans had not just survived alongside a dangerous predator, they had transformed it into a devoted family member through nothing more than compassion and genuine care. If they could do this with one of the galaxy's most feared creatures, what else might they be capable of accomplishing through their strange gift for forming emotional bonds with other species? Warlord Kresh stared at the extended hand for several seconds, his yellow eyes narrowing with confusion. In his long career of conquest, no species had ever greeted him with such casual friendliness. Most creatures either fled in terror or dropped to their knees in submission when they encountered the Vorthak. This human's calm demeanor was unlike anything he had experienced before. "Coffee?" Kresh repeated the word slowly, his deep voice making it sound threatening even though Jake had meant it as hospitality. The warlord's warriors shifted behind him, equally puzzled by this unexpected response to their presence. Jake lowered his hand when it became clear the alien would not shake it, but his expression remained friendly and open. "It's a drink we humans enjoy, helps us stay alert and think clearly. I thought you might want to try some while we talk." Amy Sullivan watched the exchange with fascination. As the ship's xenobiologist, she had studied theoretical alien behavior for years, but seeing actual first contact was incredible. She noticed that the Vorthak warriors kept looking at their leader, clearly waiting for orders to attack or capture the humans. But Kresh seemed genuinely uncertain about how to proceed. "You are not afraid," Kresh observed, his voice carrying a note of genuine curiosity. "Every species in this galaxy knows the reputation of the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems through superior strength and tactical brilliance, yet you offer me refreshments as if I were a friend visiting your home." Ben Carter spoke up from his engineering station. "Captain Morrison doesn't scare. Easily. During our academy training, he once walked into a burning building to rescue trapped civilians. Fear doesn't control his decisions." Lisa Zhang nodded in agreement. "The captain believes in treating everyone with respect until they prove they don't deserve it. Even if you're here to conquer us, he figures there's no harm in being polite about it." Kresh found himself even more confused by these responses. His warriors used fear as a weapon, releasing pheromones that triggered panic in most species. But these humans seemed completely immune to such tactics. More puzzling still, they spoke about their leader with genuine respect and admiration, not the fearful obedience he was used to seeing in conquered populations. "Tell me about your species," Kresh commanded, though his tone was less aggressive than before. "What makes humans think they can stand against the might of the Vorthak Empire?" Amy stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming any fear she might have felt. "We don't think we can stand against you militarily. Your ship obviously outclasses ours in every way. But humans have survived and thrived for thousands of years, not because we're the strongest or fastest species on our planet, but because we're adaptable and we work together." She moved to her science console and called up images of Earth on the main screen. "Our world has gone through ice ages that should have killed us, diseases that wiped out huge portions of our population, and wars that nearly destroyed our civilization. But we always found ways to overcome these challenges." Kresh studied the images with interest. Earth looked like a beautiful world, with blue oceans and green continents. But Amy was showing him scenes of humans surviving in harsh environments, building cities in deserts, and exploring the depths of oceans. Your species chooses to live in dangerous places, he observed. Not chooses exactly, Jake corrected. We adapt to wherever we find ourselves. When climate changed, we learned to farm different crops. When diseases spread, we developed medicine. When resources became scarce, we found ways to share them more efficiently. Ben added more information to the display. We've learned to cooperate with other species, too. On Earth, humans work with animals like dogs and horses. We protect forests that provide oxygen and preserve habitats for creatures that have no direct benefit to us. We've discovered that taking care of our environment and other life forms makes us stronger in the long run. This concept was completely foreign to Kresh. Vorthak society was built on dominance hierarchies where the strong ruled the weak. The idea that caring for weaker beings could somehow provide strength made no sense to him. You waste resources on creatures that cannot help you? Amy smiled at the question. We've learned that ecosystems are complex. Something that seems useless might actually be vital to the health of the whole system. For example, tiny insects pollinate plants that produce food for larger animals. If we killed all the insects because they seemed unimportant, eventually the larger animals would die too, and then we'd starve. Humans also create art and music, Lisa added, calling up examples of human culture on the screen. These things don't help us survive directly, but they make life more meaningful. They help us connect with each other emotionally. She played a piece of classical music through the ship's speakers. The melody was beautiful and complex, rising and falling with emotional intensity. Kresh listened with growing confusion. Vorthak culture valued only strength, efficiency, and conquest. The idea of spending time and energy on something that served no practical purpose was bewildering. This serves no function, he stated, though his voice carried less certainty than before. Jake leaned against his command chair, looking relaxed, despite being surrounded by alien warriors. It serves several functions, actually. Music helps humans bond with each other. When we listen to the same song, we feel connected. It also helps us process emotions and deal with stress. A good piece of music can make someone feel hopeful during difficult times or help them remember happy memories. Amy brought up more displays showing human achievements. We've used these same principles in our exploration of space. Different human cultures contributed different knowledge and perspectives. Scientists from various nations worked together to develop our space technology. Artists helped design ships that weren't just functional but also beautiful. Musicians created songs that remind us of home during long voyages. Kresh found himself studying Jake more carefully. The human captain stood with confidence but without aggression. His crew clearly trusted him, but they also felt free to speak up and contribute to the conversation. This was nothing like Vorthak military structure, where subordinates waited for orders and never offered opinions unless specifically asked. How does your species maintain order without proper dominance structures? Kresh asked. If everyone speaks freely, how do you make decisions efficiently? Ben laughed at the question. Sometimes we don't make decisions efficiently. Humans can argue about anything, but we've found that when everyone gets to contribute ideas, we usually come up with better solutions than any one person could develop alone. Even during emergencies, one of Kresh's warriors interjected, speaking for the first time since boarding the ship. Lisa nodded. Especially during emergencies. Captain Morrison trusts us to do our jobs, and we trust him to make the final decisions when time is short. But if any of us sees a problem or has a better idea, we speak up immediately. Our lives depend on everyone thinking clearly and communicating honestly. Kresh was beginning to understand that human society operated on completely different principles than anything he had encountered before. Most species submitted to Vorthak authority either through fear or because they recognized superior military strength. But these humans seemed to have a different concept of strength entirely. "You mentioned that your captain walked into a burning building," Kresh said to Ben. "This was to save members of his own family?" "No," Ben replied. "They were complete strangers. The captain didn't even know their names. He just heard that people were trapped and needed help, so he went in to get them." This revelation hit Kresh like a physical blow. The idea that someone would risk their life for beings they had never met challenged everything he understood about survival and self-preservation. In Vorthak society, you protected your own family and clan, but strangers were potential threats or resources to be exploited. Jake watched the warlord's expression change and realized they had reached a crucial moment in their first contact. "Warlord Kresh, would you like to continue this conversation in our mess hall? I can make that coffee, and we can sit down properly while we learn about each other's cultures."